she always reminds us about the importance of it and how seriously we should take it. And sometimes she goes to the extent of saying that sometimes it supersedes all other activities. Most times, you see what I tell you? So, sir, I'm telling Senator Reid through you that I warn him before Senator Cummings gets to him and never allow her to get to him. Sir, I rise to make my contribution to this bill that is before us. But before I really go into what I really want to say, let me say that I listened very carefully to the speech made by the Honorable Senator Cummings. Seriously, I'm still having a little problem with my throat, so if you see me pause and drink and sometimes I'm not too clear, you will understand. But she said, she said, sir, that, sorry, the senator said that when she went to Jamaica, how she saw students, children on the streets. I don't think that you can only say it, but you can't express it, how you feel. Because sometimes you get a feeling of anger, hurt. In fact, you experience all the emotions on seeing it. And I went, through the courtesies of the Child Care Board, to many of the countries in Latin America, attending conventions. I remember in almost every country, but the one that strikes me most is in Mexico, where at 10 o'clock we had finished a meeting, and there were little children. I mean, little children, I don't know even if they're 5 years old, outside selling chiclets, for the most part, chiclets and little sweets and everything. And I remember the director of the Child Care Board was there. And we asked, but these children go to school tomorrow? And the response came to us, if they do not sell these things to make money, they cannot go to school. So that was galling to know that there were children in Barbados who had no choice but to go to school at that age. But they did not have those restrictions that of finance or financing school that those others had. The feeling of seeing little children. And I'm happy, sir, to support this legislation in which seeks to empower the most vulnerable in this society. I want to speak, sir, from history, because I was asked to sit on the Child Care Board in 1983 by the Honorable then Delilah Bradshaw. And I was not yet 25, sir, but very, very young. In fact, I had just left college. To sit on a Child Care Board, to hear all the different things about children in this country. And one of the first things that were discussed at that time was the issues relating to child care and the Child Care Board, what does the name Child Care Board mean? Does it refer to the board of directors? Does it refer to the or the entire institution with all the workers and everyone? And then, sir, at the meeting, Senator Gwen Reeder then called for an amalgamation of the social services in this country at that time. You see, there were some problems with some children. And when the child care officers wanted to deal with these problems, they were told that legally they could not deal with them, that it belonged to another department. They didn't have the authority to deal with it. That was 1983, 84, and we went on to discuss the whole issue of amalgamation. And then in 1986, things changed. Time stood still at 24 minutes to 3, or 27 minutes past 3, or 24 minutes past 3, depending on how you look at it. But I know that agencies like the Child Care Board began to suffer the blues and sing the blues. Sir, there was no talk anymore about the amalgamation of these services. None. As a matter of fact, I remember the then Senator Reeder making a point about it. And she was then referred to as that old woman confusing the place. Because then she was asking for an amalgamation of the social services in this country. In 1994, sir, I was then asked again to sit on the Child Care Board. And I accepted. In 1995, a committee was set up by the Prime Minister, Arthur then, to make recommendations for bringing about this committee. The committee was chaired by the Director of the Child Care Board, Mrs. Phyllis Ruitt. Also included on that committee was Mr. Elysius Joseph, and also Mr., I don't know if he was professor then, but I know he lectured me in sociology at K-Phil, Farley Brathwaite. Yeah. The committee reported, but there were certain shortfalls of that committee. Because, I heard, I can't remember if it was Santa World or Santa Nurse, but there were certain shortfalls. And one was costing. Costing was not identified. And you know, certainly, an agency like this could not go groping about in the dark. So there was no costing. Senator Nurse referred to it, that there's an issue with in fact, he's talking about it now, but then there was an issue was made for the heads of departments. That report did not make any provisions for the heads of department. There was no organizational chart. And sir, today we have before us for consideration and approval the Social Empowerment Agency Bill. And these bills to be amalgamated are the Welfare Department, the National Disabilities Unit, the Child Care Board, and the National Assistance Board. I believe, sir, that, and I believe it's in the minds and thoughts of the persons responsible, that data, that there should be good database so that it would be easier for referral. Because in those days, you had to run from one department to the other, and sometimes it takes you time. That takes up time. And in fact, it did take up time. And I believe that once this use of database and researchers, as we'll get back to a little, once that is used, that would be an excellent thing. The other thing that I would like to see, sir, in this new era is a quality control officer. Because once this is established, there should be a team which is enabled to visit the various services to ensure that the service is doing what it is supposed to do, to ensure that training is implemented when it is needed, and to see that there's constant training for our officers who shall work in these situations. So I want to say a little about the NAB, which concerns the quality of care. They are doing a very good job. Very good job. But I believe that job descriptions should be implemented for individuals. Individuals should be clear on what they can do legally and what they ought to do. For example, how many hours they can spend with persons who are elderly, the senior citizens. Should be able to say, yes, the length of time, the things they can do. But I've known, sir, situations where they may have to say, and I want to be very frank on this, is they change Pampers for an old people, for our seniors. Can they have a bath for such, give such persons a bath? I mean, you're there, you don't know what is happening. And sometimes you do know what is happening. Do they have the authority to do these things? Can they check persons, check and monitor their blood pressure and their blood sugar? These are things, sir, that I believe that, that we can examine for this situation. But I want to say something that may sound controversial, and I'm accustomed to saying things that may sound a bit controversial as well. Many of our elderly are abandoned then for government to have the care of them. Many of these elderly have families. And you and I know that there are situations where a lot of these older people, or seniors, or elderly, whatever term we use, they receive their pension checks, and their pension checks go home, and those in the home make use of their pension checks. And I'm saying, sir, that if at this point that the government has to take care of these seniors, then I don't know how it's going to be done. I'm not a lawyer. I suppose that one of the legal minds in here can explain this, but I'm just throwing it out there. Then a mechanism should be put in place where the government, whoever is in charge of this, would be able to, or some account somewhere with these checks be open for these people so that that can ease the burden on the institution that has to take care of this. In other words, I'm saying, let the pension checks stop going to the home and go where it can benefit the person in that particular situation. I want to say, as I speak, especially on this issue, that how happy I am that that spanking new building close to what is normally referred to as the University of Waterford. Because I believe that at this age, in this age, that our elderly must be treated with all the respect and the dignity. And I'm sure that Senator Rogers may agree with me that sometimes when you go to the geriatric hospital, that sometimes you would, it touches you. Yeah, it touches you, unless you don't go. But there's a kind of feeling. I don't know if I have these kind of feelings because I was influenced tremendously by a grandmother. But that is the way it is, that's the way I feel. But I'm happy that they are being placed in a hotel-like situation. I agree also, sir, with the issue on social workers. But I believe that what we need, and this is something that was promoted, one, by, I know for sure, Miss Phyllis Root, by Miss Joan Crawford. It was promoted by Joey Harper. It was promoted by George Griffith, as well as Denny's nurse. All of them were begging for a social work organization. Social work that would, an organization that would set all the perimeters for social work in this country, for social workers in this country. Why? Because there are a lot of people who take up, in fact, this happened on Child Care Board, that there are persons who applied for social work positions with a degree in sociology. And sociology and social work are two different disciplines. So I would vouch for a professional social work organization. I want to answer by referring, not quoting, but referring to a document that was distributed to us some time ago in terms of the benefits of an amalgamated social service system. And one of them, that there would be improvement in both the coordination and the efficiency of the services rendered. There would be better communication. There would be reduced duplication of efforts. More effective resource allocation. That is one. You wouldn't have to go running hither and yon, and people would know exactly what which department is responsible for which area. You know what? When it comes to dealing with issues, there can be, is it an or a holistic approach in dealing with the persons, the agencies. Sometimes you may have a situation where you can immediately call the responsible persons from any other department and say, let us meet on this particular activity. Let us meet with this concern. It wasn't done so before, sir. You will have a better use of your resources. But what is even more, sir, is that the delivery of the service will be prompt, it will be efficient, it will be effective. And all of this, sir, augurs well for an efficient social service entity. Even now, in terms of disaster preparedness, one body will be dealing with this. What happens when disaster strikes? You don't have to go ahead and get one body, one social agency dealing with this. As I close, sir, I would want to say that I believe that if there are two persons that are very happy today, that they have lived to see the fruition of their efforts over the years, would be Miss Joan Crawford and Miss Denise Nurse. Those two voices I know, I've experienced, were advocating for this for many years. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Reverend Morris. You agree? Senator Cummings.
Mr. President, I'd like to move the suspension of the sitting of the Honourable Senate for 1 hour for lunch to resume at 2:45 p.m.
You're getting first, Lisa.
The question is, that the Honourable Senate is now adjourned until 2:50 p.m. today. For those honourable senators in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. The Senate is adjourned until 2:50 p.m. today.